So at Invictus, we have different types of assessments. One is musculoskeletal assessment and the second one is movement screening assessment. Musculoskeletal assessment is primarily done by a physio. It's the first thing that we do when a client enters like our gym. Yeah. So on the first consultation call, we kind of take the information about what type of injury they have, what kind of pain they have, and based on that we allot a physio, which sort of helps us understand like what's their requirement, what are their goals, what are they looking for, and based on that we plan a sequence of assessment. So usually we start off with taking a detailed history, which kind of guides us like what are the areas of pain, how did the injury happen, or how did the pain start occurring, or what were the contributing factors that led to the pain. After that, we sort of come to a probable diagnosis, what could be the structures that could be affected, what are the tests that are required to do the next assessment. So next assessment, we sort of like kind of take into account the posture, see how they're moving, if they're pain free, check the movements of their neck, shoulder, hip, knee, everything. Yeah. So like when a person is complaining of pain in a certain part of area, we don't just focus on that part, we focus on a joint above and below and sort of connect the whole kinematic sequence, because any area of pain might not be necessarily coming from that particular structure. It could be like coming from one joint above or one joint below. So it's very important to check the whole sequence. We check the soft tissue structures in case of any tightness is there. We sort of palpate, look for any triggers, any taut bands, any tightness. We look for range of motion in the joint to see if there are any restrictions in the joint. We look for stability test. We look for individual joint assessment in case of any dysfunction is there. Like in this situation, like we are particularly focused on like checking a person's SI joint, because this particular athlete had a history of like a stress fracture in the pelvis area and had a history of a shoulder labrum tear. There'll be a lot more emphasis on checking those joints out, but we'll have to check like the whole body, because while designing a program, we not only focus on the area of injury, but also in terms of planning their workout based on the type of training that they've done in the past and based on their sport. So this particular athlete is like a cricketer, he's a fast bowler. So the assessment will sort of like take into consideration all those areas as well. So currently like he's not having any pain, so we'll also focus on a lot of endurance tests. So we start off with like a device called Active Force that sort of helps us identify the difference between left side and right side. This is very important to find out the asymmetries, because any difference between left and right sort of gives us an idea what areas to look out for. So since he is not in pain doesn't mean like there are no asymmetries. We always look for like things that we can think 10 steps ahead and see what we can sort of identify and help strengthen those areas so that it doesn't become a problem in the future. Then we also go ahead with checking something what we call is movement screening, that sort of tells us small areas of dysfunction. If the hip mobility is restricted, ankle mobility is restricted, shoulder mobility is restricted, and it's like a scoring system. So every time a person comes in for an assessment, after 4 or 6 weeks, we redo the assessment. So that way it kind of helps us give an idea whether the person is improving or not, whether the athlete is lacking in some areas, or what to focus on in the next block. Then the following tests are what we call is partial line endurance. We were trying to like connect the chains in different part of the body, the anterior chain, posterior chain, medial chain, lateral chain. So this kind of helps us identify the difference between the left side and right side in terms of the partial lines.